Okay, so let's get started. Hello, everybody, and good evening. Good evening, Prof. Good evening, Coach Francis. Good evening,
Good
Noreen,
evening.
Mohani, and Dr. Shekhar is just coming in as well.
That's
So,
good.
yep, today is our self-care Saturday, and yeah, I just wanted to show everybody our August 2021. So we have come up with Prof and Coach Francis the schedule for August. So this will be our schedule for the theme will be on self-development. And again, it's on every Saturday. So yeah, the topics will be as today we're going to cover Tame the Beast, right? And then we follow by daily self-audit. And then we will be having on the 31st of August will be a better you. All right. And we will end the month with a very nice topic called Find Your Voice and Inspire Others. So how we can actually be online is basically via Zoom, and we'll be broadcasting it on Facebook at the same time as well. And share this with your friends, and you can join us on Zoom or on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram as well under @littlefriends.my. Okay. And yeah, so the speakers, I'm your host for your Saturday session, a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach. You can follow me on my Instagram, and you can also see we're very lucky to have Prof Mohammad. He's not only a good educator, but he's a good practitioner, right? And his expertise in mental health therapies and mental health programs, coaching in behavior management. So he's the one responsible to come up with all the amazing topics that he has. All right. So this will be available for you to share. And please share it with your friends because it's a free event. It's a event that or a webinar or series of talks that we put our expertise together so that we can contribute to improve the mental and physical well-being of the community. So, right, so this is made possible by also PRKT and also Fit Unit, right? Okay, great. So let's get started. And yep, and we're welcoming also a few more others. Welcome, Kamjit. And all right, so let's get started. Tonight's topic is very interesting. Tame the beast. All right. So a lot of us are definitely facing. Every week is very different, right? We are facing challenges every single week with new things that crop up, new challenges. Sometimes triggered by our past, emotions. And today we'll be talking about emotion towards angry and aggression. How do we determine you are getting out of control? And how do we manage your strong and unfavorable response to the beast within you? All right, so we'll have Prof. Mohammad to share our session today. So the floor is yours, Prof.
All right, thank you, Felicia, for that good introduction. This is our new look for this August month onward. Thank you for preparing that very nice slide presentation. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good evening to all my friends here and also those in the Facebook, and inshallah for those who will watch and view us later in our recorded YouTube. So tonight I'll be talking about this interesting topic. Let me just share with you the slide, and then I will tell you why I choose this topic. Well, I hope you can see this slide. It's basically how to tame your emotional beast. So what happened is that over the last months, we are seeing more and more incidences, viral YouTube video recording showing to us that people are getting more and more angry now. It's like what we call the pressure cooker. When if you don't release that pressure valve, obviously it's going to in a way explode. So it's better now to learn how to relieve the valve. So this is why of late we can see quite a number of person who are supposedly to be cool, calm, and collected, now getting more and more restless. After you're getting more restless, you can easily become irritable. And once you become irritable, you may end up with anger. And with anger, then you may end up with verbal aggressive tendencies and subsequently physical aggressive, which may lead to assaultative nature, destructive nature. So these are all the things that will develop if you don't realize or mindful about your emotion. So today I would say that let us look into it. Let us try to understand what it is all about and subsequently how we can manage this issue that all of us are facing. Because most of us are actually, in a way, has been pressured as though we are like in the pressure cooker. So it depends on how frequent we can actually open the valve. So this is where the topic is. I'm only human. Obviously, all of us will have the good and the bad, the traits that we have. We can call it that, we are very angelic in a way, but sometimes we have also the sleeping giant or the sleeping monster or the sleeping beast within us. So we need to know that we have the both side of us, the both parties inside us that need to be looked into and take care of. So as you said, in all of us, even the good men and the good women, there is, in a way, the wild, beastly nature that remains quiet and maybe sleep. If it is starting to be disturbed and getting more and more distressed, it will just come out. And this is what we are talking about today. Be mindful of your emotion. Last week we were talking about being mindful of your so-called frustration. And now what we worry is that we are getting more and more angry, and more aggressive to nature. So you know that basically make aware of your unconscious. So make the unconscious conscious, because if you don't do that, then it will direct your life, and then you don't realize that actually you misbehave, your action and your reaction has become maladaptive, and unfortunately that will become your destiny or your fate. This is what is happening. Sometimes we don't realize that we have the so-called micro expression. Now this is really a gross expression, but all this while there is always a micro expression on in our face, indicating that maybe it is not a pleasant emotion that we are experiencing. So we need to understand and we need to be aware. So because if you want to become a mental health facilitator and later become a psychological first aider, we should be able to first know ourselves and later able to help people around us who is going through this kind of experience. So actually, if you were to understand, it's all again, as we said, throughout the time that we had together, nobody actually make you angry. But basically, the anger is something that you choose. So the choice is yours. How you want to portray yourself is actually all is in your hand, right? If you know how to choose it wisely, then the outcome will be very good for you, cool, calm, and actually adaptive in nature. But if you do the opposite, you will always get the negative side of whatever the situation can be. So we are talking about to understand all this. First, we have to understand the psyche, the human psyche. And if we were to take note, these are the three things that we need to know within us. We have at a very young age, at the first year old kind of a thing, we have what we call the animal instinct, the ID, instinctual drive. So this is the first sidekick that we have within us till we are actually fully aware of what is going around us when we develop what we call the ego. But unfortunately, when we are still in ego reality, sometimes we may have a tendency to go back, revert back to the id nature that we have, the instinct drive, the survival drive. the immediate gratification drive kind of a thing that we need actually show out because we want to protect ourselves. We want to actually fulfill our, gratification. So ego is the sense of reality that you have, and you know who you are, what kind of situation you are in, and things of that nature. But most important, actually, all along the way, we are supposed to develop the super ego or the morality within us. And in fact, you'll be surprised that since young, even the age of 2 or 3, if we have a younger siblings, we have a younger brother or sister, obviously, actually, we have been taught about morality. We have been actually initiating to have a nature, what we call the super ego self. When we have the ego self, the reality, then we have the super ego. We call it the ego ideal. That means our ego is getting more and more refined, knowing what is right, what is wrong, what should not, what can, what cannot, and making a good judgment in our decision. So this is very important for us to understand because in our everyday life, even until this age, our psychology always come back and forth with these three psyche that we have. Sometimes we will behaving at the super ego level where we are actually the importance is not on us alone. We also actually share and consider others presence, and others are also important around us, and that is where the super ego is in action. But sometimes we only talk about ourselves, most important, that is where we are in ego self. And at times, maybe we regress into behaving in the it level, whereby when we throw tantrum, when we get angry, we may do things just for our own survival. We may hurt others, and that is where we go back down to our it level or instinct level for survival. So this is the difference between the ego and the ego ideal or the higher self. As you see, the ego talks about the reality. Some of us, their reality is not really that good. Some of us, their reality is fantastic. Some of us, their reality is fantastic. So sometimes because of our own self important, we look at circumstances, we still believe that we are the victim of the circumstances. And we think that we are actually living in scarcity, we don't have enough, that's why we become competitive, that's why we try to grope and grab everything that we can, because the most important person is us, ourselves. We cannot consider others and our ego self. And we believe that we have not enough. We are actually knowing that our life is temporary, so we are scared about it. We are just like, we know that we thought that we are like a robot, just a matter of number one and zeros only. And we feel that we are in a very competitive world, and we always say that things are complex and complicated. Whereas if you are in your super ego or high self level, you see things in a very open manner, you see things in a very positive manner. You create your own reality. You always believe whatever you have abundance. You have always have enough. You don't look at what you don't have, but you cherish and show gratitude of what you have. You know that even though your life is temporary, you say that you have awesome life. You have everything that you can be thankful of, and you actually create your own life, your infinite energy. You're an artist for yourself. You're living in harmony, and you are a very happy person. So that's why it is very important for us to take note which position are we in every day. And if we are in the emotion state where the emotion is not a good one, most likely we are still living in where we call the ego self, and possibly we may actually regress down to the it level. Here is how we can see with regard to the further explanation of the previous slide. Ego always seek to serve self, but soul will always seek to serve others. And ego will try to seek for outside recognition, but soul will always talk about your inner authenticity. While ego talk about competition, it sees life as a competition, but soul sees life as a gift. right? Ego want to preserve self, but soul always seek to preserve others. While ego looks outward, soul looks inward. Ego feel lacking, soul feels abundant. Ego is mortal, but soul is eternal. And ego always drawn to lust, to desire. Soul is always drawn to love. And ego seeks wisdom, soul is the wisdom. And ego enjoy if they win and they get prizes and they get good things for themselves. But soul looks at the journey and not worry about the so-called the things that the reward that they may get, but they enjoy the journey. Ego will talk about things that you feel pain about, but soul will talk about healing more. Ego may reject God and soul embrace God. And ego seeks to be filled, but soul is eternal wholeness. These are very important for us actually to really understand the position that we are having. Because in ourself, there's always the body, the mind, and the soul. So if our soul is very clear, if our soul is very positive in nature, this is what we are going to experience. So there's no such thing as the beast that will come out from us, and the beast will be well controlled, and possibly the beast will be silent in a sleeping mode. So ego is talking about me, soul is talking about us all. So do things that fit your soul, not your ego, and then obviously you will be happy. So this is a very important message, whereby between the three levels, the body, the mind, and the soul is actually the most controlling element that you can have, and that will determine how your life will be. So here in the Islamic psychology, we talk about again in ourselves, we have the body, the jisim, or the matter, and then the body is actually being covered and being governed by the spirit, the soul, and within us, we have been given the intellect, the akal, and given the heart. We call it the spiritual heart, the kalbu, and subsequently, you also have what we call the nafsu or the desire in yourself. And the nafsu or desire can go into two parts. Either you have the angelic self or you have the animal self. This is where you talk about the desire. Actually, desire is very important to start with because desire is a protective mechanism. Yourself, your desire for appetite is again to preserve yourself so that you can survive. And your anger is also actually to prevent people from actually hurting you. And these are good basically to start with. But unfortunately, it goes above and beyond control, then the anger can turn into aggression. This is where sometimes you don't use your intellect anymore, you don't use your angelic element with you anymore, and with the anger and with the actually they call it with the addition of the satanic element, obviously you tend to misbehave, you tend to hurt others and things of that nature. So similarly, if you were to look at all these elements are explained also in the Western psychology. So basically, what is mind? Mind is in between the soul and the body. So the soul connect the body through the brain, which is called the mind, and the mind is the emerging qualities and function of the brain. So if the body feeds information to the mind, and then the soul gives the commands on how to actually react on the information given by the body. And this is the difference between the two, the anger and aggression. As I said, the beast in you is basically the aggression part, whereby the anger is the feeling, aggression is the behavior, aggression is the reaction. So anger actually is acceptable emotion. You can feel angry, but what happens is that if you turn that to become heightened, it becomes aggression. And aggression, as I said, it can become to start with verbal aggressiveness. Secondly, it can end up with physical aggressiveness. In the physical aggressiveness, it can up with accidentally hurt others, and that's when you become what we call homicidal tendency. You'll be surprised that we saw in quite a number of videos viral being shown to us, being sent to us. All there are sometimes people having anger and rage on the street because things is not going their way very well now, And because of that, this is what we call unacceptable behavior. Sometimes you'll be surprised, even the lady can turn to be as, as aggressive as the tiger or the lion, which quite surprised for us to see this kind of behavior. So again, as you see, aggression is the action, anger is the feeling. So aggression is a negative way of expressing your anger. So if possible, now we have to learn how to control our anger. All right. Unfortunately, aggression may be from words, maybe from using your hand, your feet, maybe from using your weapon, and that is possibly a much detrimental effect. Aggression has a tendency to threaten or to injure others, and also basically trying to injure people's emotion and people's self-esteem. So try to learn how to express your anger without being abusive, either physically or verbally, and without trying to end up being aggressive in nature. So this is how we see aggression behind the behavior. Usually there are many issues. One of the big issue is there was a sensory overload. This particular person must have gone through, how should I say, series of added problems, series of added stresses that subsequently become overload, and then they actually release it out like the pressure cooker. So one is released, you can feel or can actually sense the heat and the so-called the burden from that kind of a pressurized emotion that they have. It can come from frustration, it can come from fear, it may have issues with communication, all right? And then it also have what we call at this point of a time, another issue of actually how we can tame our so-called beastly nature is the impulse control. So if we can control our impulse, obviously that thing can be, that beastly nature can always be suppressed. So this is the slide where we can learn how to manage our anger and possibly our aggression. To start with, always noted the triggering and the warning sign. Before things escalate into aggression, take note about it. Even the anger part also, you must already be noticing about it. To see the changes in you, the first changes is that it makes you restless. It makes you uncomfortable. And once the restless come in, if people keep pushing you, if the situation is not favorable, you tend to start to have what we call irritable mood. And following the irritable mode, that later, obviously, anger will come in. Then you overreact with the anger, then it become aggression. Another thing is that if the situation is not very conducive for you, step away from the situation. Do what we call sublimation. Maybe you can do exercise, maybe you can walk around, you can do punching bag, you can shout at the wall and things of that nature, or you can take bath and cool yourself down, or you can do breathing exercise, or you can actually reframe your thoughts and thinking so that then you can actually see in a better perspective, or basically you can talk to somebody. So these are very important because all this while I can tell you over the last 1 year and a half or so, it has been building up in all of us. The only thing is how good are we in controlling and taming our so-called it and the ego self that feel threatened. So here we have what we call de-escalation technique or de-escalation strategies. So basically, these escalation strategies, as I said, first, take a step back, then give a pause, and then if you can't be there, not only just a step back, but run away from the situation, cool yourself down. All right. If you want to get angry, obviously you cannot run away. Now, if you are standing, it's better to sit down. If you are sitting, it's better to just actually, make yourself more comfortable so that you don't have actually the chance to react. And then you have what we call the restraining behavior. You restrain yourself, you take control. But all these are actually skill-based. You have to be very careful about yourself. How much is your level of of anger there is. Take note about this. Here is a thermometer. So basically, if you are calm, you are at the lowest position, take note that you start to feel aroused, and then you start to feel agitated, and then you start to have explosion. So be careful about this. So just trying to again use this as your measure. Or you can use this where when you are happy, you're feeling good. If you're not happy, you are down and you're feeling sad. That is where you need a break. That is where you need a hug. That is where you need help. Or if you are worried, obviously you need to actually stop and start breathing. All right, use your sensory strategy to relax. And if you're getting more and more difficult, feeling mad, so you need to take a break and use a calming strategy. If you're furious, you need to stay safe. You need to keep away from the triggering factor. So things to do if you feel emotion, this is where important. First, recognize the emotion. So admit the emotion is actually a normal reaction. Let yourself feel that emotion. The only thing is don't get it beyond your ability to cope with it. Maybe even though some people can hide the emotion, fake it until you can make it. That means you can, put it away, or you can engage into healthy coping skill. Here, I would say that since we are all us together, so why don't we support each other, and or you can see therapists. So basically, I think that is the slide that I'm going to share with you. So why it is important is that we are talking about being mindful about our emotion. So be careful about our escalation into the situation that we can have. So Felicia, back to you with regard to this topic that is discussed
All
or
right.
share.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you so much, Prof. I think that's interesting. I like to point that out that the whole thermometer where you started to feel like calm and then aroused and angry, and then it leads to more negative emotions, to harm others or harm even yourself, right? To do something that you regret later on. How
Mm,
do we have that
yeah.
monitor or thermometer inside us? How do we keep ourselves,
Mm,
checked at all times? So sometimes it gets to the
yes.
back of us. I think during the pandemic, especially now, more and more so people are getting restless. The cases are not going down. People are staying in. I
Mm,
think there are more frustration, and sometimes it's not verbal. It's on
yeah.
WhatsApp text. People are throwing you know
Yeah.
um, messages, and there's no emoji, no nothing. So in words, it may seem a little bit more harsh as well. So how do we keep
Mm.
ourselves, our emotions in check?
Okay. That's why all this while, this I think this workshop begin with what we call mindfulness. We need to be very mindful about our emotions to start with, and also maybe mindful about our thoughts, and then subsequently mindful about our action. So I think we need to practice. I hope most of us later we'll talk about how we do audit. Later we talk about we do reflection. Later, we talk about how we manage ourselves with emotional intelligence. We manage ourselves with our intellect, with our so-called spiritual heart, with our proper soul in nature. So these are the issues that always stop us from going the maladaptive way.
Mm,
So I think, yes, obviously, first and foremost, I think the need is be aware of your emotion, be aware of your reaction to those emotions, and be aware of your possibility to either go the one way where you use your ego ideal, or the other way you use your id nature. So this is where we keep reminding each other. This is where we keep doing what we call training, where we keep monitoring and evaluating how we have been. I hope the log that we put for you all before, even though we have not revisited that log, but if you can always remember that the log is very important as a reminder. So
mm.
until unless we are making it more aware, mindful about it, only then we can have a better control.
Yeah, I think being
That's how
aware
I
and
look
being
at it.
mindful. Yeah, yeah. All right, and yeah, and if there's any questions from the floor, you may want to raise your hand or just type in the chat box as well. But yeah, but moving forward, like to see like what you mentioned just now, during your presentation, you mentioned the ego and the soul, right? So is ego actually important? What do you think? What is your take on that? Ego seems to have a lot of
Ego is
negative.
important. As I said, ego is basically about self. It is the idea to preserve self, actually to take note that self can be threatened. That's why we have this so-called a normal desire to be angry, a normal desire to actually have the appetite to eat to preserve ourselves. And actually, we have also a normal desire to copulate or to have what we call propagation of our so-called offspring and things of that nature. These are all normal. Unfortunately, what happened is when it has been losing control, so the anger become aggression. The so-called the eating become overeating without any much consideration. And then some people maybe, the sexual nature can become hypersexuality, which again, which is not good. So always remember that the self must be governed by the intellect, and the angelic self must be governed by the intellect and the angelic, the so-called the heart, the spiritual heart, as compared to if you allow even the slightest befriend with the satanic element, then obviously you may end up feeling satisfied that your emotion is being expressed, but knowing the complication is terrible. So this is where, again, one of the ways that when you are angry, when you start doing something bad, that is one people were saying about, just assume that you are actually hammering a wall with a nail. When every time you're angry, you hammer the wall, and then every time you will see the more you anger, the more the nail on the wall. And later, when you can cool down, you try to pull out the nail, still you can see the effect of it, which is obviously destroy the relationship, destroy the peace and the harmony, the community that you are in, and things of that nature. So these are all the
I have a question for Prof.
Yes, Kamji, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sure you would have come across the millenniums who have never gone through any hardship. And I think all this while they have been given a golden spoon since the day they were born. And I'm sure this pandemic is the first a trauma that they are going through, turbulence in their life, where a lot of freedom has been taken away from them. And how would you encourage the millenniums to embrace what's happening right now and to be aware and basically to take things in a stride and accept what's going on rather than complaining and becoming very emotionally emotionally, in a very painful emotional manner, because I guess a certain generation of mine who had gone through crisis may be able to understand things from a different perspective, whereas the millenniums, I do not know how they are grappling with this pandemic.
Thank you, Kamji, for the question. A very important one and very, should I say, things for us to really look into seriously. Okay, to start with, actually, Kamjit and my friends, I also have never gone into this kind of a crisis before. For the last 60 years of my life, we missed the Second World War period. I was only involved possibly during the so-called not the emergency, but when I was in Raub by the time, and it was in the 70s. If I were to
communist era.
Yeah, the communist era. And I can tell you, every time when I want to come back from KL to my place, Raub, Dong, I have to go through 5 roadblocks.
Same here, Prof.
And I was, yeah, I was actually looking like a Chinese guy. So obviously they always question me more than anyone else. So that was kind of, experience. But basically, I can tell you, the younger generation, the problem is that when we, the baby boomers, and subsequently the subsequent generation following the baby boomers, so we tend to be very overprotective for our children because we don't want the children to become like what we felt and what we experienced. So we may be not only just protective, but overprotective in nature. So now, since the children, actually the X generation, the Y generation may not really have much of a problem, but subsequently the Z generation, the Alpha, the Beta, and things like that. So they may feel the burden more because they were very much well protected. This is where sometimes we realize that they need to also be, should I say, test, challenge, adaptable, and things of that nature. And parents need to guide them to go through this process. I can tell you basically in a normal distribution curve, if we to understand the normal distribution curve for any community, the people that are having this kind of a problem is only like 1 to 3% or 3 to 5% the most. The others are more adaptable, are more able to get into the situation, and they follow through accordingly based on the situation that they are in. So the few that are having this kind of a trouble, obviously we need to assist them, we need to help them, and you can see some of them end up with a lot of suicide issues, deliberate self-harm issues, depression issues, and things like nature. So all of us need to be a very, should I say, compassionate community.
Yeah, have
So
empathy towards each other.
we love to actually make everybody to be, facilitator, mental health facilitator, and possible psychological first aider. So this is where we should play our role now. I think we open this platform actually to train mental health facilitator and psychological first aider to help out.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned, Prof, about psychological first aider, right? Pramjit brought up a very good question, actually. But I also like how Prof is answering. Because of one generation desire to protect the next generation. It becomes a way for the Gen Z, to not be able to cope, even millennials and Gen Z, not be able to cope or adapt in a normal because they're protected. But I think for me, I'm on the millennial side, and I also have friends and juniors on a Gen Z. So I think Nurin is Gen Z, right? Yeah. So we go through challenges. Because we don't get maybe some of the times where our parents or our older relatives, family members, protect us, we don't get to experience certain things, and when we face with challenges, we are not equipped. Yeah, so we also have to learn the hard way, and then we realize that I think it's either our parents wouldn't know what to do with us, or we just have to live and learn. Sometimes we win, sometimes we learn, right? Make mistakes as well. So I think it's very important to be compassionate and to be kind to each other. That generation gap, definitely the struggle is real, because how you're in your 60s, my dad is in his 60s as well. How your parents brought you up, and how you bring up your children now is very different. So it's not just using a whip and a cane, right?
If I may add,
yeah.
If I may add, friends. Basically, actually, we need to be exposed to develop what we call the immunity, the body immunity, the mind immunity, and the soul immunity. That means we have our good immune system that protect our mind and protect our soul. So that actually, if the kid has not been exposed, that's why you see has not been exposed, the body itself can easily end up with having allergies. As young as the newborn were not exposed like us. I mean, remember during my time, I think we were playing on the ground with all these chicken poops and things like that on our hand. Immediately when we call to have our makan in the afternoon, we just wash it a little bit. We just go in, we play with the longkang, we play with the things of that nature. Our body is so strong. So is our mind, I think. So I think we need to go back into the situation whereby exposure need to be there. We cannot protect people. We cannot keep people under cover all the time. So I think all of us have to learn how to do that kind of a thing so that everyone is well prepared.
So hence the
Yeah.
parents have to have to be taught their kids to be no, I say at the end of the day,
Yes.
are we saying that parents are to be blamed for what the millennials are going through today? Because
No, no.
some of the millennials, they do have problem trying to, especially when they start to work, they have lots of difficulties trying to adjust to the environment, taking orders, and also, you know, not having their way
Yes.
all the time.
Well, you'll be surprised now, even the young doctors, who escort them to report duty. Part of it, we heard that some of these parents, they even tell the specialists, please, don't do harsh thing to my kid, and things of that nature. When the person is supposed to be reported as a doctor already. So you just imagine how protected these kids are. But basically, what I'm trying to say all this while, I guess most of us getting into marriage, getting to become parent, we are actually lacking in terms of the skills, in terms of the knowledge. So we hope that the younger generation and the generation that we are, even though like mine in the 60s, we can still actually help out, teach them something, show them the way, so that the parents also feel comfortable on how to undo or mend the situation that they are in. So hopefully the younger generation who gets into marriage, who become parent themselves, will know then how to handle the children better. So learning will never stop, and we should offer the platform.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And also,
Karen?
yeah. And to add on to that, I think we all have to learn and yeah, keep on educating each other. I think we see things in different perspectives. I have worked with the young 18, 20, young 20-year-olds now, and the way they see the world is very different. Some I ask how are they coping with the pandemic. Sometimes you can see they just switch everything off. They don't have they are not very equipped to handle what's coming. So they just switch everything off and just be in their own bubble. This is what the younger generation has actually is actually adapting to the pandemic. So it's more about understanding. It's not them being lazy. It's just that they do not know how to manage certain emotions, so they just switch everything off. So by understanding where they come from, it's good to meet in the middle, and it's just about communication, I think. Yeah. So yeah, nobody to be blamed for sure. It's just yeah, like we can say our last time and the time now is very different. It's just how we see things through a different looking glass, right? So different generation need to learn and to see how we can move forward. Parents and children, and then children will end up becoming parents next time. So don't worry, we will come back to our parents later and say, yeah, you were right. Always the case.
These are like what we call the trend, and the fads and the fashion kind of a thing. So always remember, unfortunately or fortunately, basically, they have a chance to be with quite a number of generations. They still have the group, the traditionalists, and then for me, the group, the baby boomers. And then following that, they also have what we call the X and Y generation before they go into their generation and the younger generation. So I guess each and every one of us supposed to complement each other. Then if we note that, we try to rope everyone possible in, because each and every one of us can learn from each and every one of us.
Yeah, I think one of the wisdom during a session, because I think yeah, my dad and I work together, Coach Francis, right? And we were always fighting. We have our differences in thinking in terms of how we want to do things, especially in business. So one of the seminar that we attended, there was this very wise speaker. He said, do not fight over who is right. Do what is right. Focus on what is right. Yeah. So that gave us a kind of like a good reminder. We look at each other and say, okay, yeah, let's stop fighting and let's just focus on what we can do. Yeah. So that's one of the moments that we know that okay, you have your thoughts and I have my thoughts and we see things differently. But if we focus on the objective, on what we want to achieve, and that's how we can come into agreement, agree to disagree, and yeah, we can find a solution together.
That's why I hope that we can live every day with ego ID, with our soul in control, rather than with our ego self, which we can easily feel threatened. And as though that we need to be the one to preserve first before we can allow others to be in the forefront. Because you always remember the tug of war between the ego self and the ego ideal, and also the it that actually plays their role in making who we are every day.
Yeah,
Francis.
I think very good point we brought up actually with this platform. Let's say we you see the key of growing a good kid, exposure is the key but then not everybody is ready, not every parent is ready to expose their kids. I am one kind who actually expose everything. I send her to swimming. We do all kinds of adventurous things. And before I get her onto the piano, she actually went with a babysitter. She was actually drawing the. She was actually having they were having a keyboard there, so she was actually playing with it. Then when she came, she really wants it. Then she draw the keyboard on her study desk. Draw the keyboard. That's how. Then finally we got the piano for her. So I mean, these are all the little things. But then with this kind of understanding of psychology, the mind, the subconscious, all this and that, especially in this platform with the professor guidance, I think we will take very far from here. Because if you have to learn together, no matter how they say, the personal development is everything. Very important to have the personal development. Because that particular part looks like what's personal development? It's not about knowing it, it's about acting on it. You are transformed by your action, not by the concept. So these are very important things that we need to, first of all, we must have the concept, the idea, and then later we will work into the practicing of it. Then on that area, we come to understanding the mind, subconscious, the conscious, subconscious relationship. So that's where the mindfulness, breathing, the meditation, the affirmation, the gratitude, everything will comes in, all are all interrelated. So I mean, we cannot fix the problem with just one short deal like that, it will not happen. So don't worry, we move along, okay? Wherever possible, we involve them. We bring them together. Come, let's attend this seminar, attend that seminar. I spend so much of money into putting my Felicia into all kinds of so-called personal development seminars from a very young age. So I think these are all the seed we sow, we planted, and it is true. We could have done even better if I have a psychological knowledge. We have been better. A lot of words I shouldn't say, I won't say, because we didn't know. We have emotion, then we lose our temper, we use words, they are not very good sometimes, So thank God that we train them in understanding the mindset of the person that will learn, so they can actually also quickly understood what has happened, then the damage is already done. So they were from the process of personal development practices, this and that, the mind practices, they were able to slowly delete all these so-called or repair the damage, wherever possible. We continue to input positivity, so to allow negativity to go, let it go, So I think it's very important to first of all have the mental, emotional skill, very important. I think parenting skill, I think we should bring them to the psychological platform first. A lot of people understand the child growing from day old to which age to which age, everything is already set. So after that, you want to repair, which is very, very troublesome. And then sometimes it's not possible, So I think we should start parents very early. And then if we are this platform, we know that. So wherever we have any opportunity to listen to this kind of training, we bring them in. So that will reduce the damage, and also we're going to build a better future generations. Thank you.
Our goal is preventive in nature rather than trying to mend something that could be very faulty already. Just wonder, Shakir, how are you, Shakir?
Hello, Prof.
Hi,
Okay,
hi,
I'm fine.
hello, Shakir. Okay, anything that you want to say?
Okay, Prof.
How are you doing?
I was so much distracted today.
Oh, really?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, you look like you're in the same frequency as Prof, in the same universe.
Yeah, he's what we call light-minded person.
Great.
Shakir is also the psychiatrist, okay, Karamjit, and a few friends.
Nice to meet you again after a long time. So last 3 or 4 episodes, I was not able to connect with you. Sorry.
Okay, no problem, no problem.
Yeah, it is good to know that our next week's topic will be on daily self-audit, right? So today we learn about how, what is the danger, how to tame the beast, and what is the danger of like when anger becomes aggression, right? And we learn about ego self, we learn about how to have be aware of, body, mind, spirit, and how to know when to calm yourself down, have the self-awareness, right? Awareness before change, ABC, right? And next we will learn how to focus on more daily self-audit, right? So not just auditing your finances and the things in your company, right? I know we all have a love-hate relationship with auditors, right? Especially I have friends that was previous ex-auditors. They say they don't like the job because nobody likes them, right? Yeah. So, but we need to self-audit ourselves, and I think we can take this opportunity to do that. Just want to share with everybody before we end the call. Oops, sorry. Okay, so thank you so much everybody for joining the call. Definitely join us online, and it's on every Saturday at 9 p.m. So this is our first August session, right? The next one will be on the 14th of August. We'll be doing a topic called daily self-audit. So our Zoom meeting ID passcode is on the flyer. And you can share this. You can tune in to live on Facebook on our page, and we are also on Instagram, right? And definitely we want to thank Prof once again for his wonderful sharing. Do keep in touch with us. Our phone numbers and also email address and Instagram is on the flyer. So feel free to get a 15 minutes consultation with Prof if you need to talk about further things on the mental health side, and for the physical and things like from wellness to weight management, you can reach out to me as well, and Coach Francis. So we want to thank everybody once again for joining the call, and hope everybody stays safe. And also we will see each other next week. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good night.
Good night, Prof.
Good night.
Good night,
Thank
Felicia.
you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone. Please stay safe.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.